Welcome to Sleep Talk, a sideshow of Dreamers Theater, where we just take an hour or so to talk about TTRPGs and certain subjects around them. If you would like a few questions answered during these episodes, you can send us an email at dreamerstheater0 at gmail.com, I believe.
I think it's Theater Dreamers.
Is it Theater Dreamers
I think
Zero?
it's
Check
the
in
description.
some sort of description. It's in a description. Or if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can also post it in the comment section below. If you do email it to us, please make sure that you put in the subject line Sleep Talk so that we know where to find you. But I am Slive, and today I am joined with Akka.
Hello, gamers. How we doing? I am ready to talk about some stuff.
Damn right. You can. I'm not gonna plug myself. I forgot to plug myself. I'm not gonna plug myself.
We don't plug ourselves. What are we doing? Making content outside of this? No.
It's me, Slive. What's up?
Slive and Akka, just gaming, having fun.
Yeah. Only known by Dreamers Theater.
Yep. Nothing else. Don't look it up.
That's us. Today we're doing a little bit of a follow-up on last month's episode. You don't have to watch it to get all this, but it's a little bit of a continuation from that because I thought that it would be interesting to kind of flesh out on a different side of this. Instead of talking about balancing your party, we're going to talk about group dynamic. A little bit different than the last episode, but it's something that I kind of want to tack on as a continuation because it kind of is a continuation. We're still talking about the group. We're still talking about your part in the group, but we're also talking about the group as a whole rather than what you as a PC do in it. Akka, you knew that, right? You knew what we're talking about?
What? There was a test?
Yeah, there was a test. You failed.
Darn it.
I'm getting Edward back on.
That, honestly, it's so real. He's probably more entertaining.
That's so fucked up. Don't say that. Don't say that. You're beautiful and funny. You're beautiful and funny.
We love self-depreciation in this piece.
That's not how you say it, brother.
Dude, I know I said it wrong. I was hoping you weren't going to say anything about it.
Dude, come on.
Don't self-depreciate my self-depreciation, dang it.
Dude, self-depreciation day? That's so crazy.
Yo. All right.
Yes. Group dynamic. So, what is group dynamic? What is it like? What does it mean when you hear that for the first time, Akka? Let's just get into a little bit of kind of setting up some ideas, and then maybe we can go deeper into it later.
Yeah, I generally feel like group dynamic is kind of just working with your group between the players and the game master and kind of trying to figure out where your piece is within the group itself, and then also figuring out the best ways for you to be able to bounce off of the other people in the group. So it's kind of like group dynamic in an ironic way. I feel like kind of is finding yourself within the group and then also raising the group up as you do it.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example. I think that's really well said. I love that a lot. I definitely agree with a lot of it. I was even just I was going to tack on some examples, I think, for people who are group dynamic, you're in a group and what's that dynamic? Well, think of the group of, in Lord of the Rings, Boromir, Legolas. Was Boromir and Legolas at the same time? I've never watched the film, actually.
Me and you both.
What's the dwarf's name? I really thought you were a fucking Lord of the Rings guy and you're going to kind of carry me through the finish line here. This is tragic. Okay, Star Wars. We'll go Star Wars.
Yeah.
Han Solo, Chewbacca, Princess Leia, Luke. Those four are kind of a group, especially in A New Hope, the first film. Well, fourth film, whatever. But in those four are kind of the group. There's Obi-Wan Kenobi as well, during that film as well as that, as the group with part of the group dynamic. That kind of is the elder, the scoundrel, the mascot. I don't like calling Chewbacca the mascot, but I really don't know what else I can really call him other than the helper guy, the big man. And then Luke being kind of the newcomer, right? And all of those bounce off each other. They all have their own separate strengths, like we talked about in the last episode, while also making very interesting decisions based on their characters, but also getting interesting reactions from the other party members just based on who they are as well, you know. Never Tell Me the Odds is a great option, right? Because that's C3PO said that, right? He was like, we don't have a fucking chance at this, and Han Solo's like, shut the fuck up, I got this, you know.
Damn, dude, I think that's exactly what the script said.
Yeah, I think that's what George Lucas's vision was, and I'm speaking it into existence again. I'm reliving Star Wars for people. You're welcome. I've never seen Star Wars either.
What?
This has been a thing that I've talked about on the podcast already, but yeah, I've only seen like 3 films.
I thought that I was bad at watching movies.
No, you are better than me, no matter what. It is. What was the last? I watched Sinners. Sinners is great.
Hey. Well, before we get too derailed, I saw the new Final Destination, and it was great.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I was not expecting it to be good. But
it's
damn,
a popcorn movie, you know?
Yeah. Well, they're making good horror remakes again, like the Jigsaw one. That's kind of shocking. This is so nothing. Well, okay, wait. Actually, turn it around. The group dynamic of a horror film is actually very interesting. Like, let's take Friday the 13th, for example, or even Nightmare on Elm Street, right? There's always kind of like the non-believer, there's the final girl, there's all these kind of characters that are grouped up and lumped together. And like in a horror film, they're usually all just the same kind of role, like high school student in Scream. You know, like Scream is kind of a parody of it already, but like they're all high school students, or they're all kind of like their own same role, but they all have different personalities that bounce off each other. Stu in Scream is kind of like this rebellious kind of like crazy guy. I don't remember Sydney's love interest, but he's a dickhead.
Billy?
He's just a bad boy. Billy, that's it. Yeah, Billy.
I love the Scream movies. I cannot believe that I can't remember the names. That's embarrassing.
Yeah. There's some other characters in there too. They die most of the time. Spoilers for Scream that came out in 2008 or something.
Dude, it came out in like 1997, I'm pretty sure.
Is that real?
I think so. I'm pretty sure the first Scream came out in the 90s.
That's so true. It definitely came out before like I was born. I don't know why did I say 2008? What
you were thinking about the recession. That's the true horror.
Yeah, I was thinking about the housing crisis.
Yes, of course.
That did make people scream.
Yo, we really are coming full circle. And if I may take a piece of this, I do think that the horror movie thing works really well for me in terms of the group dynamic, because I feel like if everybody in the surviving group of the horror movie were all very similar, that the movie would be extremely boring. So where I think you need different sorts of, not stereotypes particularly in a horror movie, they generally are, but like filling out certain roles of different archetypes of people makes everything more interesting, but they also don't have to be so different that they don't cohesively merge at all.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like Cabin in the Woods is like the de facto, so like the distillation of horror movie dynamics, right? There's the final girl, there's the stoner, there's the jock, there's like the hot girl, I guess. I don't really know how else to put it other than just like there is a sexy woman that is going to die. And then, you know, I think there's a fifth person. There's Chris Evans, but he was also the jock.
It's okay. We can count him twice.
Yeah, we'll count Chris Evans twice. But yeah, like that's a kind of distillation of a horror movie dynamic that you need to make the movie interesting and not kind of horrendous. Like, what if it was all 4 jocks, right? All 4 jocks went to the cabin in the woods. They all decide to brute force the entity or the force or the killer, and they all die the same way because they're all fucking idiots. Unless you find a way to like Wile E. Coyote the different ways in which they're going to brute force their ways to die, it's not going to be as impactful. And also, it's still going to feel like the same thing because it's still kind of the same setup. It might just be a different punchline, and that could be interesting, but that's not really what you're looking for, right? And I will say, there is something to say that if we're going to take this back to, because this is about TTRPGs, not about horror movies, but group size really matters when it comes to dynamic, because if you have like 3 jocks that all act differently and then 1 final girl, let's say, right? I think that could also still be very interesting. But if you have 7 jocks and 1 final girl, then it's stupid. Like, you could make it work. I'm sure you could make it work. but it is going to be a little more ridiculous and feel a lot weirder that there's not enough like diversity within the group that you have.
We can cut this if we need to, but 7 jocks and the final girl sounds like an adult film.
That's so real. I didn't think about it, but as soon as you said, I don't know if we should cut this, but it sounds like I was just thinking that fucking photo of the woman sitting on the couch with like a bunch of dudes behind her, and I'm like, oh no.
Oh no, I know where he's going.
Yeah, I think like group size matters a lot, and we don't have that problem. I don't think you've ever had that problem, because the only parties you've played in was the 2 podcast campaigns we're going to be doing, and our one home game back like a year ago, and both of those times there was 4 players. Like there's only been 4. You've only been in groups with like 4 players, correct, Aka?
Yes, yeah. I've only ever played with 4 people, and I can only imagine that the bigger the group size gets, the more overwhelming it is. So I could see that being a really fine line of still trying to like diversify. If you had like, I don't know how big some parties can get up to, but like
I've GM'd a 8-player D&D game before.
Sounds very difficult. I don't want to say it sounds like a nightmare, because I bet it could be fun.
Awful. No, it is fun, but like you can't really. That's the thing, though. That's another thing. That's actually another part of dynamic, is that if you have a huge group size, don't expect a lot of like story stuff to happen, because there's going to be a lot of people trying to talk, a lot of people trying to get their moments in, and like obviously not trying to hog the spotlight, but people still like want to play, right? It's kind of innately like you would want to play or at least experience the story in some form. So everyone has to kind of be doing something. And so like the more players you have, the less or the slower things are going to go, and also the harder it is going to feel to diversify yourself. And also that means you have to have a dynamic with every other player, and it doesn't have to be a huge dynamic, like, but you can't just be a friend with every player. I don't think it's not like good for your like role play, I think, just because it's also going to feel like you are a one-note character. But it's also not going to be great because everyone will see you as a 2-dimensional character, and like you won't probably get the moments that maybe you'd want to flesh out in time, you know?
Yeah, I could definitely see that being very difficult to juggle, having more than a certain amount of people, whatever that certain amount would be. And I feel like that could also kind of change between people. Like there could be some like game masters and everything that want to have a larger group to play, and I could see the almost chaos of having a really big group being entertaining in a regard. But I feel like you definitely have to tread that line very carefully to not have it to where people don't feel like they're getting enough time to play, or just maybe taking too much time yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a delicate thing to balance no matter how big the group is, but it especially gets worse the more people you tack onto the group. But I think that's very interesting to talk about, because it goes into this whole theory and this whole piece of like how much can you interact with the group and how much can you be selfish. It's very interesting, because like I feel like a lot of players are not inherently selfish, but they don't think about giving other people space, because they're like, oh well, they'll just take it. But not everyone is like willing to take up that space, and so they will not be accustomed to getting it, but also they'll never get that feeling unless other players kind of like help them along that way. I don't know if you feel like that, Aka, because I don't know how much you try to like snag for the spotlight even in like home games and stuff. I'm not gonna talk about how you play. I'm very curious about your opinion.
Yeah, I feel like it's, for me personally at least, there's a lot of times where I feel like I'm almost hesitant to be the person to jump in immediately, partially because I want everyone to kind of get a piece of the pie, but at the same time, like, just having the awkward moment of 2 people starting a sentence at the same time and then just like, you can go.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, no, exactly.
Just between that, and then similarly for me, I don't really, a lot of the time, don't try to initiate not initiate the roleplay, I guess that's kind of not the correct way to say it, but I don't generally go reaching out to be the first person to say something. So I feel like that's something that works well when you're building a group, is to be aware that if there's somebody that's more outgoing and is generally more willing to jump in when there's like a moment for anyone to respond, to kind of be conscious of that. And I don't know if you have to say anything to them particularly, but like if someone doesn't feel like they're getting enough time to try to take those opportunities themselves, maybe you can have a conversation in that regard.
It's hard because I don't think everyone will ever get equal amount of spotlight in every episode, in every session, right? There's going to be someone that probably like gets more screen time, unless you're doing combat, but even then, like, turn time is not equal. Even just like we were playing just a couple sessions ago for the Porcelain Border, the time it takes for Corey to make a turn compared to like Shiro or even fucking Valsic is wildly different.
Oh yeah,
right. And it's also depending on what their turns are and how it is, and like also what's described, how interesting it is, how epic it is, and how much they kind of milk it. So it is dependent on the player, but it's also dependent on the scene. And so I think it's a hard thing to I say this a lot, but it's a hard thing to balance. You have to be aware of how much time someone's gotten to play, not just in a session, but throughout the campaign, which is really hard to keep track of. You can't just like keep a tally for your like players. It's just impossible. It's just something that you have to kind of innately know, or it's something that you have to check in on, because definitely like I've had a couple times during Cracks and Porcelain Border where I've checked in on you, Akka, to be like, hey man, just making sure that you're like enjoying yourself, you feel like you've gotten your space to take in, you feel like you're there, right? You don't feel like a background character, do you?
Yeah, and that definitely is like very greatly appreciated too, because there is a anecdote that I have of like a couple of sessions ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I remember there was one session where I was on a hunt, and I feel like that took up like 60% of that entire episode was just me going on the hunt. And then I don't know, I'll give you props for you doing this intentionally, and if you didn't, then just take credit for it anyways. But I feel like the next episode I like almost said nothing. So like it felt like the episode prior was like the Shiro episode, and then we got to the next episode and it's like, all right, he had his turn, get to the back of the line, buddy.
Get the fuck back. That was so that those episodes are episode 3 and 4. I've kind of tried to memorize the episode numbers at this point. I've gone crazy for this podcast. It's all in my brain, but those are episodes 3 and then episodes 4 in order. And I don't know if this will come out before or after those yet, but it's very interesting to say that, because I actually was really worried about episode 4, because I was like, damn, Akka said like fucking nothing. I was more worried, honestly, because I was like,
I had even like thought about it after the episode was over. Like I was laying down going to bed and I'm like, damn, I really didn't say much that episode. But then like as I thought about it, I'm like, well, I pretty much took over the entire episode prior, so I guess that's fine, because I truly don't mind not having a huge role-playing role at times. Especially, I feel like Shiro's character isn't particularly the most talkative person. He kind of more wants to just like do the work that needs to be done, and that could be part of when you're building the character for the group dynamic. I feel like that helps a lot to know, does your character, which could just be a reflection of yourself, do they want to speak a lot? Like, do they want to be the person who's kind of running the show verbally, or do they want to be the more soft-spoken person who's maybe doing more research, or just the backline healer who just is almost like a pacifist at taking a vow of silence? I feel like that all kind of comes together while you're building things. So I am totally okay with the fact that I did not say much in episode 4.
I want to go back to that a little bit. Maybe I'll talk about it with you like outside the podcast, because I don't know how much it matters to this, but especially because I don't know when the upload schedule is going to be. It is very interesting, because there's this kind of like, I don't know how popular it is in like general TTRPG space, but like there's this idea of like a party face. And I hate that fucking term. Basically, the party face is the one that does all the talking, does all the like stuff. Basically, is the one that kind of like puts himself forward for the group. and does all the talking and negotiating because they have the highest like charisma and or the highest like social stats and stuff like that. I don't like that because I think in the Porcelain Border, the party face would probably be Valsic, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't get Valsic to speak for you ever. Like you
well,
should not
especially
get
given Valsic's character.
Yeah, just exactly. Everything about Valsic just speaks ill of having someone talk to him. But he has the highest social stats, so he should be the face, right? And he'll get everyone what he wants. But he won't because he is a selfish character. Not like terribly. He will still look out for the group, but he has his own self-interest. He has his own kind of demons in a form, and he will also like try to get what he wants the most. And sure, sometimes the party face will be the most generous person of all time. But they also don't have your character's ideals. So your character should be speaking for what they want. And if they don't want anything in the scene, sure, let the party face fucking do it. Who cares? But I think there's something to be said that everyone should have a voice for a lot of scenes. Not every scene, because sometimes scenes don't matter. When everyone's like on the same page and stuff like that. But when there's arguments, where there's like bartering, where all these things are coming into play in real life too, everyone's opinion, or at least like view of something, should be taken into account. Maybe it's not always useful, but especially with a 4-player group, there's 4 minds at play here that all are thinking different things. Maybe it would be good to hear them at least, even if you don't believe that they have something useful to say. And that's what the dynamic's about. Because if Valsic was trying to do something and try to kind of like swindle some fucking guards or like try to get something in for himself, and you guys aren't there, or you guys just let him take reign and none of your characters like fight him on it, one, he kind of gets whatever he wants, and then people might like the players might get upset. Not like I don't think the PCs would get upset in real life, but there's this kind of there's no dynamic there where it's just like Valsic fucks up and does a bunch of evil shit and we all let him, and then he pays the price for it. And sometimes it's really funny, or it has very good moments, like episode 5 will have an amazing moment for that kind of stuff. But also, I think now past episode 5, I think people are going to have to be a lot more, or not have to be, but I think people are going to be a lot more defensive about what Valsic tries to do, in a way, you know?
Oh, yeah. And actually... here we go.
Go ahead.
There's the classic, both of us talking at the same time. I just brought it up.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
I would like to put a counterpoint to what you were saying as well, though, to where I feel like whether you be the game master or you're just in the group, I think it would be worth taking a conscious effort to know the group that you have, to know if there could be a benefit to having a face character, whatever you would call it. I apologize, I don't know the terminology.
No, yes, the party face.
Yeah, there we go. Because like for me, when I first started, when we did our like homebrew campaign, I wasn't huge on role playing, so I didn't really want to talk very much. The more I do it, the more I'm starting to enjoy it, and especially now, ironically, being in a podcast where I am intended to speak has changed things quite significantly, but it is fun. But regardless, that's getting off the point. So like me, say a year ago, and my girlfriend, who likes to play these types of things, she does not want to talk. She does not want to role play. I think one of the campaigns she's done, she literally made her character take a vow of silence just so she had an excuse to never say anything. So I think there is a benefit to where you could have somebody who kind of takes charge of the role playing if the group wants that. But I don't think that should be encouraged for every group, because a lot of people will probably want to say at least something. So it kind of just comes to talking to your group and going, hey, do we want someone just to kind of lead the charge, or should we all say our piece and kind of do a little bit of everything? Or should we just get as fast as we can, get done with all the role playing, so that way we can go beat up more stuff?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, actually. Like, I do like that a lot, and there's even in a home game that Micah ran for a little bit, her partner played a mute, and so like they would basically like type stuff out what their character does and not do a ton of role play. Like, it was very much like meandering stuff, just like like very very much so like not often. It was just more so like bits that they would put in every once in a while, which is funny. I thought it was a lot of fun, and it was cool. And they were not like, they were kind of like drifting with the party. They weren't like doing a lot and weren't trying to, but they were going with the party. And they were pretty comfortable with doing the stuff like that. I guess I agree, because you should talk with your party. That's a huge point that I have, really. You should discuss with your party about what you want from your character, and also like what you feel comfortable doing in the game. Like if you feel comfortable doing a lot of role play, then I would hope that you have options for a lot of role play. No one like besmirches you for doing so. But if you only feel comfortable like playing the combat a lot and just kind of being along for the role play, as long as you're not being a dick about it and like you accept that role play is a part of the fucking game, then I think it's fine for you to just be like quiet and on looking, and then be like, combat, let's go. And so yeah, it's based on the group dynamic, not just your party dynamic, but this episode is about the group, and you have to know who you're playing with. I think that's a really important part in coming to do this, because honestly, the only reason that I was really, when we were talking about making this podcast and we were really like going through it, I was trying to make sure that it was a mix of people that have already played together in some form or fashion and were comfortable with each other, you know? Obviously Edward had not met Micah before this podcast, but that was kind of like the only one. I think Edward had met you, Etheraka.
I think we had like one conversation prior, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah, maybe once. But I think now, as much as we don't like, maybe we don't like talk super often outside of the podcast, we still like do meetings and stuff like that, and we do chat and stuff like that. I'm not going to be like, we are only business partners. That's not the case.
It did kind of give off the vibe where it's just like, all we do is do the podcast, and then we all spit in each other's faces and run away as soon as it's over.
No, it's just because we record so often, and so like, and we're all busy, so a lot of the time that we spend together happens to be podcast stuff, but we also fuck around and like talk, because I feel like we've become a decent friend group throughout this podcast, which is really cool. And we are all really comfortable with each other for now. I mean, we've only been playing for a few months now, but even now I feel like I am more comfortable playing with people. I'm more comfortable like role playing. I was really nervous for the second session when I was doing the Kane stuff, even like listening to the Kane stuff, like the Kane speeches now, and I felt so shitty because I was like, oh, I've just taken up all the space and not allowing the group to like do their own stuff. And like the whole porcelain border thing is kind of stressful because like, I'm not letting the group do their stuff. But I feel like after like now looking back, you guys have really made this campaign into your own. As much as there are restrictions and restraints and all these pieces to like kind of impede you, you're all working with those impediments really well and kind of making them more entertaining in doing so.
Yeah, I feel like this isn't particularly huge on the group dynamic topic, but I feel like that campaign in particular has almost not an emphasis, but it kind of has more of a pressure point on the game master, it feels like, because it's such a like deep and like rooted story that has a lot of different moving pieces going, to where there could be just like the fun campaign where it's like, all right, you'll talk to people for a couple minutes, then you'll do some combat, everything will be sick. But like this has so many intricate parts that I feel like there almost needs to be more story put in first before we can really do our say. And like, I thought the stuff with Kane was fantastic. Re-listening to it personally, I'll glaze you for a brief moment. We are
yes.
We are Kane Whitwer stands.
I'm gonna see so many Kane Whitwer posts on Tumblr and Blue Sky.
Please draw Kane Whitwer art, and also Shiro while you're at it.
Yeah, just draw Char actually. Just draw.
Yeah, just Char.
Draw Char and then like a silhouette with the texture missing next to him.
Just like a Gary's Mod missing texture of a person. Yeah, that would be so funny.
That would be so fucking funny. Oh my god. Okay. But yeah, I do appreciate that, and I think going into it, I kind of knew that I'm a very story-oriented DM, and that's really bad for Dungeons & Dragons. People are going to argue with me about that, but it's just true. Story stuff does not do super well with the system if you know other narrative based systems. It there's a lot of lacking pieces there, and I was trying to make sure that I was leaning into what makes D&D the system, what the intention was in that system, where it's kind of like a dungeoneering and looting thing, while kind of turning it on its head a bit. A lot of the dungeons that I make are not exactly like dungeons, quote unquote. Like the first dungeon you guys face is a bureaucratic building. It's turning the purpose of D&D and kind of texturing it in a way that is a little different and a little stranger, while giving it like a lot of story beats and a lot of stretch to that. But that's because I also felt like it was hopefully something that everyone enjoyed, because we talked about what we wanted from this campaign. And the original pitch for Porcelain Border was very different. It was very, very different. I don't know if you remember the original pitch. But it was basically like, it was like a kingdom had some traitor in it, and you guys were supposed to like explore the kingdom and the campus to find the traitor. And like, it was not supposed to be this corrupt, evil place. It was just like, hey, there's someone like leaking information. Who do you like? We're hiring you as adventurers. Welcome to our lovely land. You can explore around and see and find the like bad guys, basically. And it turned into this whole revolutionary dictatorship, like this kind of like pseudo capital based dictatorship that they like, you guys want to be revolutionaries and kind of like overthrow and be rebels. And I was like, and you guys want to do this in D&D? We could have played Cyberpunk. We could have played Cyberpunk Red. But I went with what you guys wanted because you were all really amped for that. You were all really feeling it. And I wanted to make a lot of interactions in the vein that you all were enjoying. And that's a part of group dynamic. I need to know what you guys want and know how to bounce off of you guys in a way that is true to the nature and the character and the story around it, but also true to the character that you're talking to. Corey and Mala is a perfect example. If you don't know, Corey is Micah's character, and Mala is a half-orc miner. Not miner, M-I-N-E-R.
Both hands up right as you said it. You went, hold on.
Orcish miner who works in the mines. Don't get it twisted. And basically, before the campaign started, Micah was like, yeah, I want KJ to be kind of like a floozy and fuck around, like kind of sleep around and just sleep with adventurers and get the hots for a lot of people. So I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay, let's make a character that is interested in KJ while also holding a lot of story purpose. And like, Mala is a character that was born in the country. I don't want to get into spoiler territory because, again, I don't know how this upload is going on. But Mala is a character that I'm very interested in because she's not very important to the story, but she's very important to the ethics. She's kind of like, she is the border of the kind of the birthed internalized discrimination that like the kind of nation holds towards everyone that's not them, right? And I don't know if you've noticed this, Aka, but she does make a lot of comments towards like Vicanians, which is where you guys are from, and she knows that. She just makes a lot of fucking comments about that kind of stuff, and makes comments about like how Yolanda's kind of like superior in a lot of ways. And it, as much as Mala like is a quote unquote good person, she's so entrenched in the teachings of Rena where it's hard for her to kind of like look out and see that what she's doing is, or how like her views are incorrect. And also, no one's fucking pushed her on it. Corey just kind of like internalizes it all, and so they just kind of like, she just kind of keeps doing it and no one bats an eye.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I feel like no specifically for Corey also, it's kind of just like, well, they are hot, so whatever.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Mike has told me like KJ might not even like as much as like Micah was saying that KJ would sleep around and stuff like that. Micah feels like KJ has qualms about it because of how Mala is, and due to KJ's backstory, which I'm not going to spoil here, but there's a lot of feelings towards Rena, and especially having someone born in Rena just kind of like spouting the propaganda, even if it's unintentionally, it's a weird dynamic. It's a very weird dynamic. And I like, obviously this is just like, I'm talking about group dynamic because the GM is part of the group, right? And so you have to bounce off the story as much as you can. And like, bouncing off can be dialogue dancing, which is, I don't know if you've ever heard that term, Aka, but it's basically just like being witty towards one another, like really working with what people say instead of like dumping exposition, then your PC says something and then the character keeps dumping exposition and kind of acknowledges what you said.
Like, oh, that's cool. Anyway, it just immediately goes right back to like the script.
5 years ago. Dialogue dancing is a form of like working with that dynamic, and I think it's really fun PC wise. I've not gotten to be a player with you, Aka, yet, but I'm really excited to play with you because I'm just gonna be talking a lot. I just love role playing. If you couldn't tell, so I'm just gonna be yapping a lot, and you're gonna have to deal with that a little bit. I'm sorry.
With the character that I've got brewed up for the next campaign we have, that is more than fine. I think we are going to possibly have to be told to stop at some point.
We're gonna have to be told to shut the fuck up. we're gonna be told to shut up multiple times. It's okay. I think I'll live. I understand.
That's the risks we take for great art. Smiley face.
So true.
But
so true.
I would like to kind of pivot off of what you were saying, and one of my biggest notes that I have written down for this to kind of keep tabs on everything is literally just 2 words of being flexible. And I feel like
so true.
That pretty much is everything. Like, not only from like day one, you have a group together of people that want to do a TTRPG. You immediately need to be flexible from that point to when the campaign ends. So I feel like when you're character building, I think one good thing that you have established for when we're making campaigns is make 3 bases for characters, and then we'll all get together and like pitch our character ideas. So that way it's not like, well, I was going to do the Ranger Elf and I'm sticking with it and you can't say nothing about it. Like, you have to come with a little bit of
I can't do my Ranger Elf, I will cry and I will leave the campaign. Let me have this,
Exactly. And I definitely feel like, you can obviously have more of a bias of what you want to play, but even just from the beginning, you have to kind of be a little bit more lenient if you want to really enjoy everything, because everyone's has an objective, and you need to work with, let's say, 3 other people's objectives while working on your own. And that takes a lot of working together. It can't really be super selfish when you're doing something like this, and there might be moments where it's just like a one-on-one interaction in the world to where you can go down the path that you want to go down, but in the main part you have like a team of people that you literally need to work with in every moment. And so you have to be flexible in pretty much every regard, I'd say.
Yeah, I heavily agree. I'm gonna get into like that. I was hoping to get into this point because this is another one that is pretty important, and you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I just want to explore a little bit further about that, and maybe more in like a pinpoint area. But my second point, and this is the one that I like was really wanting to ring out, it's have a group that can actually play with each other. And that sounds like, oh, well, yeah, I've played Monopoly with these guys, and sure, we fuck around, and, like, everyone gets mad at the banker or whatever, but we can play a TTRPG. No, dude. It's different. It's a different experience. It's a different type of medium, and there's going to be feelings, and there's going to be wants from every player has a certain want and certain idea of how they want to play a game. The group cannot find a way to make all of those work. Someone, like, you all shouldn't be playing together. That's just the truth of it. Sometimes I think there's all these conversations like, oh, well, you can talk with your party, have these conversations, do all this, do all that. You can do all that, and sometimes it just won't work. I have had only a few times in my life where I've had to basically drop a campaign because I just can't play with people. During those times, I have tried my hardest to talk about it, to go through my issues, to like deal with it, but we just didn't see eye to eye. Like, I don't even think the players were like problems. It was just very different expectations of the game and what they wanted and what I wanted. And so I was like, I can't do this anymore. Sorry. Dunzo.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that particularly either, because at the end of the day, this is a hobby. Like, this is a game. So if you cannot enjoy yourself while you are playing a game, then something is very wrong. And I think
exactly.
From an outside perspective, because I would quite outwardly say that I'm the one who has the least amount of experience with TTRPGs of our group, that I feel like I've heard many more horror stories of a group falling apart because someone got way too angry about something, or like they had their goal and they were so steadfast in that goal that they would not let it go, and it just ruined the campaign to the point to where nobody played it anymore. And it's unfortunate that it gets to that point so often, to where I heard that far more than I ever heard somebody saying, oh, we've been playing this campaign for 3 years and it's been like the greatest thing ever. So you definitely really have to know your group very early on to know if it's going to be something that you can like really go for the long haul with.
I think there is a feeling where people are like, oh, well, this is a hobby that I love and I want to introduce it to people. You should vet them a little bit. You should vet them. You should vet them a little bit. It's strange to say, but it's like, this guy can be your best friend. He can be awesome. You can love partying with him. You can love like going to movies and stuff. You can have the same interests, same hobbies. If he can't get why you can't just like punch the fuck out of a merchant because it kind of ruins the vibe a little bit for the general play, he's just not the right pick for this table. You know, like if he's doing something that's ruining the vibe and he just can't really like grasp that, you can have a couple talks, but sometimes you're gonna have to drop it. But also, this is not just like an out of play thing, but this is an interplay thing too, where some people like want to play their character so well, where they're like, well, there's no narrative sense for me to stick with the party. I've had this happen a couple times. Like, why would my character stick with this group? And it's like, that's what the story's about. That's what the story's about. That's the story. That's how the story works. And so like, if you can't make a reason, you shouldn't have played that character. And obviously you can workshop stuff with your GM, but if you're like, I can't figure out a reason, you can just be like making a new character, or you can decide like he's sticking around because he's curious, or just like give him like one reason. Just give him one reason, even if it's like very false. And, you know, just try to play with it, because the GM made a story and was like, hey, you're all together. The point of TTRPGs is that you're all a group together. Like, well, I'll use another Lord of the Rings example, but this time I actually know what I'm talking about. A little bit. Legolas is an elf who hates dwarves, and there's a dwarf in the group, right? I don't know what the reasoning in Lord of the Rings is for why they stick together, but they do, because the story needs it, right? And in doing so, there's a lot of fun banter between them. And at the very end, it's like, I never thought I'd die fighting alongside a dwarf. How about dying alongside a friend? That's like one of the only Lord of the Rings quotes I know. But it's a perfect culmination of their character arcs. And it came from a very loose reason to why they showed up. Like, obviously, it's probably because they had to destroy the One Ring or whatever the fuck. Who cares? But, like, they found a reason as to why this thing that like narratively shouldn't make sense. Elves hate dwarves, yada yada yada. And you don't have to be fucking Tolkien to figure that out, man. Really dig deep and just like make sure that you as a player are giving it your all to participate in the game, that being the group. The group is the game. Everything outside of it is less tangible than anything else. Like, you can talk to 50 NPCs and it'll be talking to the GM, so it's kind of the similar. But really, like, getting in deep with your fellow PCs is really cool, because they're always going to stick by you. They're always going to be there. And there's also someone there that's just thinking about that character, and you are just thinking about your character, so that the dynamic you can actually talk about, and it will be remembered and kept, and you can keep it going forward, rather than a GM who has to remember who the fuck Snigbob was and be like, oh, what did you do last with him? Did you pickpocket him? I don't know if you figured that out. You know, like,
shout out to
sure,
my boy Speeve.
Yeah, my boy Steve. What's good?
Was it Speeve that you had? In
oh,
the one
Speeve. Oh my god, what? Why the fuck was there Speeve?
I think it was like, I think Micah was like messing with you and was trying to focus on the one person you didn't have fleshed out.
Oh my dude! Shout out Speeve. When he shows up, that's gonna be so good. I forgot. I thought that wasn't a podcast thing, but it is in the podcast. My goat Speeve.
Listen, I need Speeve art on Tumblr immediately.
Oh man,
but
so
on a oh, continue.
No.
What I was just gonna say with that is, I kind of have more of the player character's perspective on that, since obviously I have not been a GM or anything before, and I feel like within the group dynamic, one thing that I also have written down is also not to be too harsh on yourself mid-campaign, which I kind of feel like is a note to self at the same time that it's like a top talking point. Because
Mark is just journaling at this point.
Well, listen.
No.
I've got things to say. I just feel like, I said, for me personally, putting myself into it to be able to explain it the best, I wasn't super comfortable with the role playing at first, and I felt like every time I had said something, I was thinking about it really hard afterwards, and I'm like, did that make sense? Was that stupid? Was that not important? And thankfully, I have the group around me that is kind enough to not say anything if it was stupid, but secondarily, kind enough to kind of like check in afterwards or in a break of being like, just making sure that you're comfortable, and I don't want you to feel like you need to say too much or that you might not be saying enough. So you kind of have to get out of your own head when you're in these games, if you're anything like me, to where you don't have to be doing anything more than just doing whatever you want to do. And that kind of works within the whole group of similarly. Again, everyone has their own objectives, and everyone's really just trying to have fun at the end of the day. So don't put yourself in too much of a position to think that you're not doing enough or too much, because someone will probably let you know.
Yeah, I think if people, like you said, oh god, you think about like stuff you said. I've definitely done that where I'm like, oh my god, did I talk too much during like this session? Oh god. Like, maybe I should have let someone else talk. Maybe like it was he talking to me, or did I just take the fucking talking stick from somebody? But I think that generally, most of the time, people will get to say what they want in a scene. And sometimes I've definitely let jokes slide because I felt like I've talked too much, or like I've been derailing it a bit too much. But I feel like, I'll say this for you, like as someone who's been GMing you since you've been playing. I've been your only GM pretty much since
Literally.
you've been playing so far. You have not ever said anything that like was stupid, in the sense that like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't develop anything super much, but that's like kind of a super nitpick critique that it's more that I feel like, I don't even feel like this, but like I try to make sure dialogue like pushes some sort of narrative or pushes some dynamic, but that doesn't need to even be the case all the time, because I definitely don't do it all the time. Like in an ideal world, every sentence role played probably like leads to something, like is kind of a Chekhov's gun in their own way, but that's not possible. And I'm not going to act like it's possible for especially newer players. And so I've actually really liked every time you role play, because it's always given me something to work off of, or at least something to think about, and it's added more. What the fuck just happened? Oh, someone's opening a freezer. Give me one. I've always felt like your roleplay gives a form, at least a form to your character. Like, Shiro is very much like not a talker, but he's kind of jovial in like the not a talker role, where he does, if he's talking to people, he's kind of upbeat and a little bit happy. And he's been really showing it off with the House Claw, not House Claw, the House Talor member that he's been getting a little closer to, where he's kind of always, he never shows up as on his guard, but like we said, there's a hunting scene where I'll say this, he tears it up. Shiro fucking tears it up. Not like a super spoiler or anything, but he tears that shit up, and it's based. It's awesome. And having that dichotomy with the character, I think, is really interesting, and I'd like to see more of where Shiro is. And I think in the latest episodes, we've really explored how Shiro feels in a lot of ways. Especially last episode, after you guys got back from your little trip, quote unquote, trying to be very kind of like vague about
saying as little as possible while getting the point across.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that like we really got to be introspective about who Shiro is and what Shiro is without going too far deep into it, but I'd really like to go deeper. I think there is, obviously it's as comfortable as you, I want to make sure that you're comfortable with it, but I would love to go deeper into Shiro's backstory, how that kind of made him who he is, where this is all culminating to, because I think there is a culmination for every character, every PC at least, in this story, and I'm not sure where it's going, and I don't think you guys are sure where yours is going either. Everyone kind of has an idea, I'm sure, but I don't think anyone really knows, and I have like pitches and stuff like that, but I'm really curious to see how the further we dig ourselves into hell, how everyone deals with the heat, I guess, is a way to put with it.
Yeah, and for starters, thank you. That is very reassuring to know, because I do feel like I think a lot about my role-playing, given that it is very new to me. And it kind of full circles back into the first topic that I had brought up of being flexible, because with that same thing of talking about how Shiro is like kind of a bit more jovial, and he is almost giving off the vibe as if he's like enjoying it, which is partially peeling back the curtain a little bit, just him trying to be super friendly, because that's the card he's playing to the enemy, so that way he's kind of using that as an attempt of getting closer to his goal. But my original thought process for this character was a super angsty, like, pissed off teenager, basically. And that's where I had it in my mind when we were first starting it, where I'm like, all right, this is kind of a more serious campaign in a regard, so I want someone who went through a hardship, and he hates the world, and he is just basically going to take it out on his work and not talk to anybody. And then, as the story has progressed, I, felt in my own mind, that character's not fun to play. Like, there could be people who want to play that character. I do not. And
I love playing a little shit heel. It is very fun.
Being evil, quote unquote, I feel could definitely be fun, but like just being jaded to the point to where you have to like almost act like you don't enjoy what's happening is just not my character. And so I feel like that said kind of brings it back to being flexible, to where you don't have to be super concrete in what you're doing day one, because what we had from the beginning, to me, is nothing to where we even are now. And I imagine a year into this campaign will be almost a different story, just for how much stuff develops and how people get comfortable with everything and what role they really want to play the farther we get into it. So just kind of being able to bend yourself to whatever you feel is good is probably the best option to take.
Yeah, I agree. Like, don't play a character that you feel like is unique to the dynamic and could like have interesting like interactions with your group if you don't enjoy playing them. That's the most important part. You have to enjoy your character first. But also, I would say that you can have an idea for a character, not really like it, and still play the character and just change how they play. Because I'm writing my character's backstory for our next campaign that we're running, which the first episode might actually be out by the time this is out.
Ooh.
But I'm working on that right now, and I don't know if I can play a boisterous, bombastic, violent man the way that I'm writing him to be. And especially with how much I want him to kind of be kind, I'm not sure how much I can really fit into this idea I have for him when I'm role-playing him. So I don't know yet. I don't really know whether or not my character will work out the way I wrote him. But I will just figure out a way to roleplay him in a way that I am comfortable in once the campaign starts. And I'm okay with that. And I kind of like accept that, because even some of the NPCs I've played, I have not ever felt comfortable playing them the first time. It usually takes a couple swings for me to really get them, you know? And I think it's the same with PCs too. Like, you cannot... There's a very rare chance for you to, like, swing on a character and then just have it, like, on the ball right away. But I think I'd like to move on from group dynamic now, a little bit. I know that's the whole episode, but Aka, this is your first time doing this, so I'd actually... I was supposed to set this up a little bit earlier, but I didn't. But okay, like you've said before, this is your second ever campaign. Like, Crashing the Porcelain Border is your second ever campaign. Your first ever campaign was with me maybe a year or two ago.
It sure was.
And you've kind of been thrown in the deep end. We are in a TTRPG podcast where we kind of have been not advertising ourselves as like TTRPG experts. I don't think we would ever do that, because I'm definitely not. Hell, we're doing a Lancer campaign, and I just started reading the Lancer book right before we do our session 0.
We're doing Lancer.
Spoilers. I think it's again. I think the first episode will have come out by now.
Well, if not,
so it's
a little Easter egg.
If not, Lancer. But yeah, like, I just started reading the book, and I'm really embarrassed that because Edward runs a Lancer home game that I'm in. And reading that made me so embarrassed to realize how much we're missing in the home game. Legitimately. Not like embarrassed and like telling Edward to do better. It's just like we all should have been reading the book and doing a lot better, because we really fucked this up. We really fucked it up.
And
so
that's
I hope,
okay.
I hope the Lancer campaign is perfect without any faults and any critiques. I'm sure it will be. But this is your second ever campaign. This is your first probably like real year doing TTRPGs. So I think you are the best subject to ask a couple questions about group dynamic, but more importantly about like your creation process and how you got into it, because you are the newest member, like the member with the least amount of experience, and so you might actually have a lot of, you know, insight and a little bit of information for the viewers that maybe haven't started yet. Maybe they haven't played a character yet. Maybe they're still stuck on making a character. And they don't know what the fuck it means.
Akavela 37 interview, dude. Let's go.
Yes.
Newbies, listen up.
Newbies, listen up, because he's just like you. He's just
Truly.
like you. So the first question I have for you is, what were your thoughts when making your first character?
Well, that is...
And I don't mean Shiro. I mean Leon.
Yes. For a little behind the curtain... it's actually funny because I had this in my notes as well, of researching your world if possible when you're creating your own character. And so for context, this entire campaign that we had done for the first thing that was just for fun was a League of Legends Runeterra based campaign, and everybody just turned off the podcast.
and everyone's gone. Yes, but I did run. It was not for profit, so you can't sue me. But I ran a campaign in the world of League of Legends, and if Riot wants to sponsor us and make a TTRPG in Runeterra, I will gladly replay that shit.
Gladly come back, and Leon will live on.
And Leon will come back.
Yes, but to actually answer your question, it is a very interesting process, and I think if it's available to you, having someone with more experience kind of at least nudge you in the right direction works wonders, because it is a bit overwhelming just right off rip. Especially just any TTRPG that I've interacted with thus far, it's kind of just like a Bible's worth of text all thrown at you at once, and then it goes, you figure it out. So
Yeah.
it's helpful
I
if you
guess-
have someone else that can kind of be like, okay, what kind of character do you want to play? Like, do you want to be a big face tank? Do you want to be more of like a healer, long range, or whatever? And with that, then you can kind of be on the ground running a little bit more than just staring at an entire booklet of rules and going, well, I'll figure out something in here.
Yeah, I mean, even with like the class systems that a lot of games have, it's still pretty hard to nail down what that actually means. Like, sure, barbarian sounds pretty simple in D&D, right? And then wizard sounds simple, but what's a wizard compared to a warlock? And then what's a warlock compared to a sorcerer?
And what's a
And
goon
then
to a
druid I
goblin?
kind of get.
Sorry.
And what's a goon to a goblin? You know? And like Lancer does not help at all, because why is the fucking thing called a Genghis? What the fuck? What the hell is a Blackbeard?
What in
Is
the
it a ship?
goddamn is a Genghis?
No, it has a chain axe? Oh, okay, yeah. What the fuck? And so it's really hard to get, like, to set up a vibe. You're right. And I think getting help is really good. But talking about, like, characters that you like in regular fiction is actually interesting, and it goes into my next point. What archetypes inspire you the most? And more so, what archetypes of characters in, like, media that you already seen have kind of, like, caught your fancy the most and are things that you, intentionally or not, replicate a lot in your character making?
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting perspective, because I feel like, for me personally, I generally, funnily enough, I don't really root for the good guys in like a good chunk of media. Like, one of my favorite shows of all time, Game of Thrones. Don't say anything about season 8. I know it was bad, but to me the most fun characters were the people who were just outwardly evil. Like, I don't know how much of you had watched it personally, Slive.
This guy likes Tyrion Lannister.
Well, not even, but like Ramsay Bolton, phenomenal. And for any context, for anybody who might not have seen Game of Thrones, basically just like he loves being evil, and that is a very fun dynamic of a character to me. And I would like to play off of that at some point, but I feel like that's really hard to be evil in a campaign with a group without the group being innately kind of evil themselves. So that's going to be a hard thing to work on, but I feel like a lot of it for me generally stems towards like video games, because that's my media of choice generally. And let's say whether it be like Overwatch, Paladins, Team Fortress, or something, any sort of team shooter, that feel like is a pretty kind of almost one-for-one thing where you have multiple different roles and you have to put yourself in one of them and try to fill it in. And I, make fun of me if you may, I love being a healer generally. So I think that kind of being more of the supporting role, to where I am not like the main source of hurt, and I'm generally not the face of the situation by any means, that's where I'm the most comfortable in. And so I feel like you kind of have to pick those things up to be able to translate that into a TTRPG, so that way you can still be comfortable when you're playing.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. I like that answer a lot. I actually don't have this on the list, but I kind of interested, because I thought that your answer for that question was going to be a lot more linked to Shiro or Leon, which Leon, by the way, is like a monastery monk for the Kinku, if you know League of Legends lore. So it's so funny to be like, have Leon, this little monk sheep guy, and Shiro, this very jovial hunter, and then be like, yeah, my favorite archetypes are fucking murderers. I just love warlords and evil people. They're my favorite. But obviously, I really respect that answer. It was kind of out of left field for me, but it's very interesting. But it makes me curious. What was the inspiration for Shiro then?
Shiro, I feel like, take this how you will, audience and the like, but I feel like Shiro, in a point, is kind of a reflection of myself at a certain point in life, to where you kind of, especially as you get a little bit older, not that we're kicking the bucket by any means, but
I
you
am. I am.
real.
I'm so old.
I'm the oldest person in this group, I'm pretty sure.
My birthday was recently, bro. It's doomed.
Yo, my birthday's soon.
I'm so old.
As the time
Oh
of
my
recording.
god.
But
Hell yeah.
personally, I think that when you're doing something such as a TTRPG, there is a very big benefit to being able to relate to your character. Now, if you're just like a full-blown actor and just really enjoy like throwing yourself into something that's nothing like you, there is definitely a place for that. But for me, especially trying to build my role-playing confidence and just get more comfortable, when I was making Shiro, I was thinking of myself at a relatively darker point in my life and kind of using that and writing it in a fantasy setting of like someone went through something similar, and then how do they overcome those obstacles while also trying to go towards their main goal while fighting their own demons at the same time. And so I feel like that helped me a lot, kind of just be in the shoes of the character, because in a sense it's pretty much just me a couple of years ago. So I feel like that helps a lot.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that's it's a good tip. Like, really put yourself, at least a piece of yourself, in your fucking character, and you'll probably give a shit. Like, yeah, it's pretty guaranteed that you'll probably give a shit. I think that's really interesting and cool. Was there any, like, I don't want to, like, dig deeper and be like, that's not the answer I was going for, because I think that's a really good answer and I like it a lot. But I'm curious, why did you choose to be like an elven archer?
I don't really think there's too deep of an answer for that, other than it's cool. The biggest selling point for me was the Beastmaster archetype of it, just because I think having a cool animal that can assist you is neat. And I thought that it would be fun and kind of a good compliment to Shiro as somebody who's not really trying to be in your face, to have a similarly long distance attacker with the bird Char, to where we kind of almost share similar traits, but at the same time we can like work together and he can dive in while I'm attacking from a distance and everything. And it kind of really wasn't anything too deep other than just, I thought it was neat.
That's kind of interesting. So, like, I think it's cool that, like, you thought about, it seems like your character's backstory and your character's class almost didn't, like, have anything to do with each other. And that's not a bad thing either. But it's very interesting how you thought about your class and your subclass in all these ways. And you were focusing explicitly on, like, combat or like regiment and orientation, and for your backstory you were purely thinking about like past experiences and stuff like that and connections to that. And so, like, I won't say that Shiro could have been any class, but I feel like Shiro, if you didn't get ranger immediately, I think Shiro would have stayed very similar, like maybe story wise, but I think there would still be a lot of majority change if he was to be, say, like a fighter or a barb.
Yeah, I feel like your class can definitely have a good influence on your character as a whole, because I feel like the fighting styles almost are a reflection of your character. And even though it wasn't super intentional at the time of like, I have a person who's kind of distant, and therefore in a ironic sense his attacks are also from a distance, it almost kind of worked hand in hand in a like an otherworldly kind of way, where that wasn't truly my intention off rip, but now it makes sense to where I'm not really ever trying to be the person who's like at the front of a conversation, to where I generally speak when spoken to. And so me having those reservations as a role player and as a person trying to talk to other characters, I feel like that does translate well with the fighting style of, I'm not going to be the one to run up and initiate the fight, but if the fight's happening, then I will certainly pick a spot in the back line and make it happen.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because I said, like, oh yeah, Shiro could have started as any other class. But now I don't think he could. I think I would feel weird if Shiro wasn't a ranger anymore. Right? It's gotten to the point where, like, we've played enough where Shiro is a ranger, and if Shiro was ever not a ranger with Char, it would be weird. And I don't think it's just because it's due to comfortability and like exposure. I think it's also because it's like a deep-rooted part of his character as well, that we kind of like understand now.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like similarly, I guess the more that I've thought about it, the more that it has kind of come back to me that I did kind of want to be a Beastmaster in the sense of like, for the character's backstory, without giving too much away, he had experienced loss. And so I kind of wanted him to have somebody that's specifically his with being a Beastmaster, to have another character, playable or not, that he can always confide in, and that means realistically far more to him than anyone in the campaign, even though he cares deeply for the people in the campaign. Like, there is a spot that we had recorded recently where Char was not treated very kindly, and
Yeah.
that was quite overwhelming to Shiro. And so I kind of, that might have subconsciously been more of the reason to have like the backstory work with the character, but I feel like just running with what your gut tells you helps a lot when you're building a character.
Yeah. I don't think you should have everything like plotted out before the campaign starts, because I think there's revelations you will have no matter what during play that will make the character more interesting. And I think giving some room for that always feels really good, because then you can text your GM and be like, hey, I just thought of something really fucking sick. Can we add this on? If it's a complete retcon to your character, go fuck yourself. I hate you. But no, I don't. That's a joke, obviously. But like if it's just if it's just tacking on, I think that's great. If it's something like that pushes more, because you can just make up shit that's happened in your backstory as long as it adds up. There's probably a lot of stuff that you did before the like game started. Like you can talk a little bit and improv a little bit about stuff you've done. And it doesn't mean that you can just pull out a sword and be like, "This is the legendary sword of Nosferatu that I got on my way here." That's not how the game works. But like having some form of like or like having a story that pushes your characters or gives reason to your characters' existence and like kind of their mood and their vibe is really interesting. It's really cool. And it kind of gives a lot of opportunity to stretch out and talk about that kind of stuff. Don't overwhelm your GM with frivolous details that maybe don't matter or can like throw off his entire story. Make sure, like, if you're going to make up something, make sure it's self-contained and also doesn't impact anything. Like, unless it's to give the GM something to work with later, hold your horses. Don't be like, I actually have a nemesis. I have a bounty hunter chasing me. And the GM's like, what? You do? Why?
It's the 50th session of our campaign, and I learned about this now?
Yeah. If you're like, I probably have like 17. I've had 17 attempts on my life. Then the GM could be like, okay, well, no one's putting an attempt on his life now, but maybe one of his close NPCs tries to kill him, and then you can call it back and be like, this is number 18, bitch, and I'm going to make sure there's no 19th. You know, like, and give callbacks and stuff like that. That could be fun. Those are cool options, but it's all based around how you do it. But this is running a little long, and I need a couple more questions to answer. So we were talking about your connection to the party, and my next question is, where do you feel like your character or you fit in the dynamic of the group? I know this is kind of like a little bit of a meta question, but this is about group dynamic. And so I'm wondering, where do you think Shiro fits on the team?
That is one of those things that's kind of fluctuated as the campaign has gone on. Because I felt like at the beginning, I really wasn't going to do anything more than pretty much what I was told, and then just try to get information pretty much through, like, obedience. And in a sense, that still pretty much is where I'm at, but the tone has shifted to where I feel like I'm almost in, like, a kill him with kindness kind of approach, to where I know everybody has their objectives of getting more information, and then we'll work on that as a group once we have the information. And it's funny talking about this to the person who is the game master, because I'm pretty much telling you my plan.
Hi.
And but I feel like my headspace has pretty much been, since we're not together 24/7, my sole objective is to almost work my way deeper into the fold, and then hopefully I'll make friends with the right people, and then they will be comfortable to tell me things that I can use to go against them all.
What, you don't think you're friends with DeLorean?
I think DeLorean's great. I say awooga in
Every
canon
time.
every time I see her.
Every time. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very interesting because, yeah. But where do you think that fits in with the group? Like, how does that... obviously, it helps with the job. Not just, like, for the job. Obviously, for the campaign, it matters because the whole campaign is the job, right? But what does and how does Shiro act in a way that adds on to some people's interactions and also maybe takes away from others? Not in a bad way, but, like, kind of conflicts, right?
That's been something that's been a little bit more difficult for me as a player, only because there are times where I don't lose the objective or anything, but like I almost have to ask myself that question sometimes of like, what am I doing to benefit this situation other than just existing? There's dynamics with other characters that I feel like are helping, to where I've generally leaned more towards Micah's character, Corey, to kind of be like, that's the one that I'm going to riff with and the one that I'm going to talk to kind of bounce ideas off of and everything. And then canonically, as previously stated, slight spoiler, Char is terrified of Dylan's character Nox because he is also a bird. So it's kind of like Shiro is almost still an outsider in a regard, and I don't know if that's just because I'm newer to the whole TTRPG scene, to where I don't want to put myself too important because I'm not really sure how to run that role. So I'd almost rather be kind of like an accent piece, to where if Valsix has an idea or if Corey has an idea, then Shiro's kind of the one in the background going, that sounds tight, let's do it.
I think that's really cool. Like, being a supportive role without being I feel like you're always... It's interesting, actually, because, like, Shiro always does feel like kind of an addition. Unless he has his own scenes where he's solo and, like, he kind of is really good at that. But he almost feels like an addition whenever the group's together. He's kind of like a benefit when you went on your little trip and you had to do some recon. Shiro did the recon, but it was after everyone else was, like, bickering and trying to figure out what's going on. And it feels really interesting to have Shiro be that kind of, like, it feels like he's almost an accessory sometimes. And I think that's not a bad thing, because I think you play him really well, and I'm not saying that, like, he doesn't get enough screen time, as we've discussed already. But it's interesting to have this character almost be lessened, or have his role lessened once he's with the group that he's he's kind of like friends with and he's workers with, right?
Mm-hmm. And I
He
feel
almost
like
insmalls himself. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're okay. Sorry. And I feel like that works well with his backstory at the same time that it works well for me as a character and a player, to where his backstory, he was by himself for a while, and he ended up kind of embracing that role of being the lone person who gets all of his work done, and then his work is pretty much his pride. Like, that's the only thing he really cares about, is being good at what he does. And then that works well for the group dynamic of the characters, because he's not used to being with people all the time, so he's not really going to be super outgoing or the one kind of trying to shoot ideas out first. And then that works really well for me as a player, because I am still not the most confident in just outwardly saying something, partially because I don't have tons of ideas of where to go sometimes, and similarly, I just want to kind of bounce off of other people a lot more than I would like to be the one to where it's like, okay, what is Shiro doing right now? Like, that works well for me as a one-on-one, but in the group setting, it's like, well, Shiro's just gonna kind of see what everyone else has to say first.
I think that's cool. Okay. And I have a last question for you because we are getting a little longer than usual, I think. This is just to wrap it all up in a nice little bow and maybe give an example of what we mean when we talk about group dynamic. But I thought it would be cool if we both gave a couple pieces of media that we really love character interactions in. Like, what are your favorite groups that have a really fun dynamic in media already?
I don't know if you have any off the top of your head, because I would definitely like to think about this for a moment.
I did kind of just like I did kind of sucker punch you with this, but yeah, I have a couple. I was thinking about it a bit before this, but like I think Borderlands 2 with Handsome Jack.
Oh yeah.
Has like Claptrap, Handsome Jack, the hunter guy that you meet really early on, because I haven't really beat Borderlands 2, but there's like a lot of really Moxie. Was it Tiny Tina? Is that her name?
Yes, yeah.
Like,
you trust me, you're talking to the Borderlands professional here.
Yeah.
I have a Borderlands tattoo.
That you do. That's true. Yeah, but like that has a really fun dynamic with a lot of different bombastic characters that all fit the vibe, but all serve as different niches into that kind of craziness. Futurama, it's a comedy. It's a sitcom in a sense, and so. They're all delivery drivers, but they're all really good at playing their role, and it's very like exaggerated because it's a comedy. Like a robot, a professor, a doctor that's a lobster, an idiot, and a cyclops walk into a bar. But I think those are really good ones. If I had to give another TV show, I would say Lucifer is pretty fun. The TV show. Based off the DC comics or the Vertigo comics. I think that's pretty fun. I'm trying to think, Persona 5. Probably all the Persona games have fucking insane dynamics with their characters.
Very real.
It's just crazy. Those are I think those are really good examples of like especially the Persona crew are a perfect example of like a TTRPG group where you all have to be on the same page of what you want to do. You don't have to always like each other that much at the start. Those are my major examples right now. Do you got any?
Yeah, for starters, you kind of like awoke a subconscious part of me that I didn't realize. Did you play the first Borderlands campaign?
No, I've never played the first Borderlands.
Well, first off, Criminal. Borderlands 1 is incredible. But the hunter that you were talking about, his name is Mordecai. And...
Yeah.
I think I accidentally made Shiro Mordecai.
No way.
As I think about it, he's like a relatively more serious, kind of like the quiet one in the group, and also literally has a bird that attacks.
Oh shit.
Oopsies. I made Mordecai.
Stole his whole fucking flow.
And I don't even play Mordecai in Borderlands 1. I play Lilith, but that's not the point. It just kind of like hit me. I'm like, holy shit, I literally just created a character I already knew, which there could be something to that, but I
mean, Theron Ulrus, the guy you met in the last session, so the first time, like you guys will know when you see Theron, he's kind of important. I don't know if you remember Theron
loosely,
but he's like the God Emperor. And he's heavily based on the main antagonist of Mistborn, the first one, the Final Empire. So, I mean, the whole campaign's very heavily inspired by Mistborn. I love that book so much. But Theron is very, very inspired by the, like, kind of God Emperor character in Mistborn. I don't remember his name right now, and I don't remember his title, but that's kind of where the inspiration for his character was, and I'm not ashamed of it at all. Fuck you.
Listen, no judgment here. Never. One piece of media that always comes to mind for me, because I am a slut for it, for lack of a better term, is Arcane. I love Arcane. I always have loved Arcane. In another kind of example of me liking people that are inherently more evil I am a Jinx enjoyer through and through. And
I thought you were gonna say Silco.
well, yeah, I do like Silco. But I think my two favorite characters in that show are Jinx and Victor. Which Victor's the farthest from evil, but he is just cool as hell.
Victor's
And
dope.
I think that show in particular is interesting because you're kind of following like 8 different groups at the same time, and they just kind of bounce into each other's worlds every so often. But like they're almost all separated into like these little groups of 2 or 3 of them at a time, and you get to really flesh out their worlds, and then it kind of climaxes into like, okay, now everyone's all together and things are bad. But that's really one thing where seeing like the group dynamic definitely is inspiring to me.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like that. Do you have any other ones, or are those all the ones are at the top of your head? You don't have to give another one. I was just curious because I cut you off.
No, you're good. Funnily enough, whether it be a testament to who I am as a player in TTRPGs and as it is, I generally play a lot of games single player to where you're focusing on one person, so that could kind of attribute to the character that I play in this. But there was one other one that I had off the top of my noggin and I just lost it.
Yeah, I call that Skyrim syndrome. That's a term that I use. I think I've talked to you about Skyrim syndrome before. Maybe I'll bring it up another time, but it's just funny that you talked about it because people hear role-playing game and then they think of role-playing games, the video game genre.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Skyrim syndrome is basically like when they think they can do whatever they want because they're like the protagonist.
That's a fantastic way to describe it, because to me that is similarly like what role-playing is in my like mind's eye, where it's like, yeah, you're just like, you are the hero, not
yeah,
you
and
have a
no
group
one
of
gets
people.
mad at you. And if they do, you can just reload your save, or you can just kill them all because you're awesome. But
Yes,
that's like a whole other topic. I might even just like I'm kind of tempted to make a whole sleep talk about fucking Skyrim syndrome because it's very funny.
That would be I'd listen to that.
Yeah,
I will say I did think of 2 other quick ones that I'll run through.
Go ahead.
One of them, because we had talked about it previously, funnily enough, is like the whole horror movie thing. That's my general media of choice in terms of movies and everything, and I feel like that, obviously, as we were discussing, has a really good group dynamic, and I feel like you'll tend to like attach yourself to one of the characters, whether it's just because you like them the most or anything. Like in the newest Final Destination, there's like this goth dude named Eric who is kind of just like the crass person of the group, and he's awesome, and I love that actor, but nonetheless. And the other thing that I was thinking of, funnily enough, not really a group at all, but in the campaign it is funnily enough the Mortal Kombat campaigns.
Oh, that's so true. Actually,
Like, they're so schlocky, and the stories kind of suck, but I love them for that. And like, that's a really good testament to like having characters that are all drastically different, and yet a lot of them end up fighting for the same goal, to where you can have Scorpion, who literally is like a demon that turns into like a fire skeleton, fighting with Johnny Cage, who's just an actor that's a dick, both trying to fight for the same goal. So I feel like that is a huge inspiration for me. It's just like those schlocky action movie type of things, whether it be movies or games like that.
Yeah, I think those are great options. I really like that, actually. Those are really fun, like options to have, and really interesting ways to look at it. Because I'm even thinking about like MK9 story, where Sonya Blade and Johnny Cage somehow hook up, and that's crazy. That's an insane thing that happens. And like in MKX, actually, like the combat kids are like a really, as much as like no one really likes the combat kids, Cassie Cage, Jackie Briggs, Kung Lao, and Takeda, but like they have a really fun dynamic throughout the story. I feel like I think those are like the closest ones to like a full like TTRPG party that you could like compare it to. But I really like those options. But I think that's all the time we have for today. We have been talking for a while. Thank you so much, Aka, for answering my questions. I know I kind of sprung that interview up on you a little bit, but I thought it was an appropriate place to put it. Maybe it's not. Maybe people will yell at me, but blame me, not Aka, because he had good answers, and maybe I just don't have timing.
Hey, listen, that is quite all right, and that was fun. It was definitely a good bit of like reflection for myself, and hopefully that is beneficial to anybody who might be newer to the TTRPG world, such as myself, and wants a little bit of inspiration, or even just something that they can think about that they can use to kind of chew on to get themselves into this world, because it's a very fun world, and even though it can be a little scary to get your feet in the water, it is definitely worth your while. So I would very much recommend it. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for showing up, and I think it's time to wake up. This has been Sleep Talk. I'm Slive. You can catch us on Blue Sky, TikTok, and Tumblr at Dreamers Theater in various ways. You'll see it. We have the same logo everywhere. And thank you for showing up. This has been a great time. See you next time. Bye-bye. What the fuck just happened? Oh, someone's opening a freezer. Give me a moment.
The gates of hell have opened up behind him, apparently.
I'm being taken for my sins.